In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the upper control arms that come with the ball joints on this Lexus IS. Located behind your front wheel, and you do need an alignment after this job is done. Let's get started. With the vehicle safely raised and supported, use a 21mm socket and remove all 5 lug nuts and then pull the wheel off. Just as a tip, if your vehicle has locking lug nuts and the special key for it, don't use an impact on it. Break it free by hand with a breaker bar, then finish removing it because the teeth on those little sockets can break. And remove your wheel. Let's remove the cotter pin that is on the outer tie rod. And to do this, you might need a pocket screwdriver to help you pry the hook out. Slide it off. Use a 17mm socket and remove that mounting nut. Oh, looks like for me, the tie rod stud popped out, which is great. Actually, sometimes they don't, and they get stuck in here. Now, because this is an aluminum knuckle, I would not want to hit it with a metal hammer. You could try to tap it with a rubber mallet or dead blow hammer right here. Most likely what you'll end up doing is having to use a tie rod stud or ball joint stud remover tool. What that looks like is it clamps on to this part of the knuckle, has a bolt that threads down, and it'll pop the tie rod out. Once again, for me, well, this has already happened, so I'm going to remove it. With our tie rod disconnected, we can now turn the knuckle so we can better access the ABS retainer bolts, and they're both 10mm in size. There's this one over here that we have to remove on the knuckle. We'll take that off, remove the bracket, and I'm just going to put this back so I don't lose it. And then there's this one that's on the strut. Remove this one as well. We need to separate the upper ball joint from the knuckle, so remove the cotter pin. If you have this hook style cotter pin, then you can reuse these, but if you have the ones that you have to bend over, definitely discard those because you don't want to use it more than once. With a pocket screwdriver, I'm trying to pry this away. Sometimes they get super stuck in here, so you might have to use something larger, but there we go. Get this out of here, and now use a 17mm socket to remove this mounting nut. Now we have to separate the stud from the knuckle. To do that, I'm going to put the mounting nut back on, but I'm not going to thread it on all the way. Now what I will try is to use a rubber mallet right here. I don't want to use a steel hammer. That's going to damage the knuckle, being aluminum. If the rubber mallet and the vibrations from it don't break this free, I will have to use a ball joint stud separator tool, which is basically a clamp that goes in here and pushes this up. Another option would be to take this and install it backwards so that you have a wider area to hammer on and then just hit upwards on the mounting nut, and that might also do it, but that also risks damaging the stud, so I'm going to try it this way. There we go. Pry down on this control arm, remove the mounting nut, separate these two. As this knuckle comes forward, make sure it doesn't come forward too much to where it'll separate the inner CV joint. So just make sure it's leaning to the side like this. You could use a bungee cord also to secure it and support it. Now you can see the 2 bolts that hold the control arm onto the body. There's one right here and one right there. They're 14mm in size. If you have a low profile ratchet and socket, you can stick that in there, but I always recommend using a wrench for this because it fits a lot better. So if you have a ratcheting wrench, that'll be the way to go. A little tip here is if you don't have anything that'll fit directly here, what you can do is use an extension and go from this side over to that side so you can swing your ratchet here, but unthread that bolt. Regardless, let's get our 14mm in here and unthread these mounting bolts. This one loosened up to the point where the wrench isn't doing anything, so I'm just going to do it by hand. All right, pull this bolt out, and we'll do the same to the other side. When removing this side, as soon as this breaks free, the control arm is going to want to drop down. Just be careful. There it goes. So I'm going to lift this up so I can get more swing out of my ratchet. Continue loosening this. Okay, there's that bolt. Now you can pull the arm straight out, and there it is. Install the new control arm back into its slot. You might have to use a rubber mallet just to tap it in place and line it up. Once you have it lined up on one side, try to fish one of the bolts in. Try to start it onto its threads. If it starts by hand, you know it's definitely not cross-threading. There it goes. That one started. I'll just bring it in as much as I can. And we're left with the other one. There we go. Sometimes you might need to use a pry bar to gently maneuver the spring around. All right, let's get this one started into its threads as well. Okay, that one is threading on smoothly. Both of these are bottomed out as far as they will go by hand. Now the thing is, this has to be torqued at right height, which is pretty much parallel with the ground. To help me hold that position, I'm just going to use a pry bar, stick it in here and kind of jam it in place between the coils of the spring and the control arm. That's going to hold it here for me so I can fully tighten those two bolts. I'll grab that wrench that we used earlier and snug them up. All right, that one's snug. At this point you can remove your support because it'll be held on with one of the bolts, and you can move over to the other one. All right, that's nice and tight. The torque on these two is 36 foot-pounds. There's no way I will be able to get a torque wrench in here. Even if I cross it over from here with an extension to that side, I won't be able to swing it and get a straight shot at it. So I'm just going to use my long ratchet and snug them up. 36 foot-pounds is not that much. I'll give it an 1/8 to a 1/4 turn after they get snug at most, and that should do the trick. All right, there's one. And the second one, that's pretty tight. So that is installed. Now join the control arm and the ball joint back together. Have the mounting nut ready to thread on. There we go. And that is secured temporarily. Now with the control arm down a little bit, you can fit a pry bar in here, pry up against the spring, down, and that'll allow you to thread this mounting nut on a little bit easier. Let's tighten it up and torque this to 64 foot-pounds. That's torqued right there. My cotter pin slot lines up, so that's perfect. Now that doesn't always happen, so if it doesn't for you, what you want to do is always continue tightening to line it up and never loosen. You want to just get it over to the next closest slot, and then you can put your cotter pin in. If you have the hook style cotter pin, you can reuse them, or you can source a new one, or you can install the kind that gets bent over. Just make sure you replace that every time. I'm just going to install the kind that I have to bend over, so slide it in and bend it over. There we go, that's installed. Let's reattach the ABS sensor bracket on the strut, start in the bolt and snug it up. Make sure that's tight. If you're doing this by hand, about 1/8 of a turn after it bottoms out. And don't forget about the bracket on the knuckle. Snug that up. Now bring the knuckle over, put the tie rod stud back through it, and install the mounting nut. Snug it up. Torque this to 48 foot-pounds. This is not a castle nut. If your tie rod for some reason has a castle nut, continue tightening until the next slot lines up if it doesn't already, so you can put that cotter pin through. But in my case, I don't have to worry about it. Stick a new cotter pin through, and this one's the type that we have to bend over to lock in, so do exactly that. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern, we'll torque all of them to 76 foot-pounds. If your vehicle has the locking lug nuts with the key, be very, very careful with these. I don't recommend using a power tool on them. I'm going to use one just to slowly bottom it out, but I'm not going to impact through this adapter because the teeth on the backside can very easily break. Once again, 76 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them all. Remove your tool if you had one of these here. There you have it. Take it for a road test and don't forget to get in alignment.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.